Wow, what a bright and lovely morning. I wonder what's on my schedule today. Let's see. 7 in the morning. Have tea and scones for breakfast. 10 in the morning. Violin practice. Noon. Shopping with friends. How exciting. 4 p.m. High tea with friends. That is going to be so lovely and a filling dinner. 7 p.m. Luxurious bubble bath with rose petals. I can't wait. 10 p.m. A bit of light reading before going to sleep. Wow, another wonderful Lolita lifestyle day ahead of me. Let's get going. I'm not even out of frame. If you wear Lolita fashion, you may have heard of the idea of the Lolita lifestyle. The romantic idea of wearing Lolita full-time and dedicating oneself and one's whole life really to the fashion, and even your behavior. Basically, it's the idea that you live 24/7, 365 as a Lolita. No longer is it just a fashion. It's now become your identity, your way of living, your philosophy. But what is the lifestyle, really? In this digital age where the Lolita community is fractured more than ever across many platforms and censored across even more, what shared vision do we even have of a lifestyle Lolita? What does it even mean to live that way? Is it a dream, a reality, a fantasy? I think we can fit a discussion on this topic in between picking up macarons and going to watch a screening of Kamikaze Girls. The lifestyle Lolita is a common discussion point and was particularly in the LiveJournal days. She's an elusive figure, a unicorn-like combination of the fictional life of Momoko from Kamikaze Girls and the imagined life of a shop staff or model like Misako. She spends her days in Lolita. Even when she's relaxing, the clothes she chooses to lounge in closely resemble the fashion, decked out in frills and bows. Her hair is likely in rag curls, and she's probably drinking tea. Her hobbies? Well, more tea drinking, tea studying, doing embroidery, and writing poems. Her personality? It's demure, elegant, girly, and polite. So the lifestyle Lolita has her hobbies and her personality dictated by her manifesto of the fashion. All things considered, Lolita is a rather old subculture at this point. These things tend to come and go naturally with time, with only a few really standing the test of it and staying around for more than 5, 10, or 15 years. I think most people who care about the history of Lolita fashion would say it's around 20 years old or a little bit older. I'm inclined to agree with that. And 20 years is a pretty impressive longevity for a fashion subculture. Of course, part of the reason that Lolita has been able to hold on is just how niche it is. There's not really anything else that perfectly or super closely resembles Lolita fashion that would fill in the gap if it were to disappear for the participants. But I also think it's because the aesthetics of the fashion do spill over into our social spaces. Here I'm thinking about meetups, conventions, discussion groups, the fact that there is print media like the Gothic and Lolita Bible, and So Pretty Very Rotten, and Nobara Takamoto's body of work, as well as the movie adaptation of Kamikaze Girls. These things bring the reach of Lolita outside of just the act of putting clothes on. And I think these are the key components of what make Lolita an actual subculture and not just a style or a trend. As well, Lolita is just such a jarring separation from the norm. The vast majority of people who wear the fashion have had to defend it, to over-explain themselves, to try and get people to understand why they might have an interest in dressing so frilly and so girly. It's very easily written off by the average person as overindulgent, as frivolous, and to some, even offensive. There's a lot of people who are suspicious of the driving reasons for people to wear Lolita fashion, assuming that it has to be something a bit more nefarious. So I think these 2 points, the fact that Lolita is more than an aesthetic and the fact that it separates us so much from normal people, is what drives us to desire a Lolita lifestyle. One, when you stand out so much, separated in some way from your friends, your peers, and your family, there is, I think, a sort of loyalty that forms to the thing that makes you unique. You want not only to be able to defend it, but to make it the point of the things you do. If everyone's going to judge you for it and make it a big deal, then you might as well accept that it's a big deal and make it one in your life. I just realized I'm not wearing rings. I don't think this is a bad thing at all, to be clear. It's good to be able to embrace our differences and our passions. And two, the fact that there is a greater community beyond just wearing the clothes means it's easier to make your lifestyle centered around Lolita. After all, tea parties teach you your diet, dainty sandwiches, salads, macarons, scones, fruits, truffles, and so much tea. Meetups teach you how you should spend your free time with picnics, museum visits, socializing with like-minded frilly individuals, of course, and dressing up. And studying media like the Gothic and Lolita Bibles, Otome no Sewing, and Kamagatsu Girls teaches you your hobbies, crafting, sewing, even what bands to listen to. Oh, and thankfully, Misako is also there to teach us how to behave and how to make sure we do not commit the most embarrassing behavior. See, the reverse happens all the time, right? Subcultures form around music, a hobby, and then a fashion style develops within that group as well and becomes associated with the subculture. Here, I'm thinking about greasers and skaters as just two examples. But you also see this in music subcultures that have strong aesthetics like hip-hop and goth and even emos and scene kids. I think Lolita is just an example of the reverse happening. First, the fashion formed, and then a subculture and way of being grew around it. And what I find interesting about the lifestyle Lolita is that the lifestyle seems to be much more important than the Lolita part. What I mean by this is that many Lolitas who wear the fashion every day or almost every day do not seem to consider themselves to be lifestylers, specifically because their life doesn't revolve around Lolita, and their hobbies and personality, they claim, don't align with what the lifestyle is. Maybe it's their hobbies, maybe it's their home decor, maybe it's their interest or parts of their personality, but they just don't seem to match the ideals of the fashion, whatever that is. I often find people talking more about why they're not lifestylers or why they want to be one than actual lifestylers talking about what it's like to live that way and what drew them to the idea of lifestyle Lolita in the first place. It seems like not a lot of Lolitas have been able to attain this aspirational lifestyler status. So what is it really then? And why are we all so obsessed with it? There are a lot of reasons why the lifestyle is so hard to achieve. But what I see cited a lot across Facebook groups and discussions and old live journal threads is really just how much life gets in the way. The vast majority of people can't wear Lolita to work. Sometimes their job is too dangerous or difficult to perform in Lolita in. It's just not considered appropriate. They have a uniform, a dress code, or just judgmental coworkers. Obviously, I'm specifically talking about people who wish they could wear Lolita to work. Some people just don't want to. It's impractical at the end of the day. And as an adult, work just occupies so much of one's time. If you work full time, so much of your life is occupied by being at your job. And in the Western comm, at least, I think we've moved past the stereotype that people who wear the fashion are mostly teenagers. Realistically, in this economy, it's much more likely for adults to get into such a frivolous and expensive hobby. And other than work, if you're a lifestyler, are you supposed to wear Lolita right up until bedtime? Or can you wear Lolita adjacent fashion like otome, fairy K, vintage, goth? When you're in your loungewear or PJs, does it have to be cutesy and frilly? Does it have to be from a brand? Are we no longer lovely if we like to lounge around in ratty old t-shirts with holes in them that were hand-me-downs from our dad? To try and answer this from the assumed lifestyler's point of view, I think that most people would say that when it's not practical or justifiable to wear Lolita fashion, it should be influencing your other fashion or apparel choices. If a Lolita were to see you walking down the street in something other than a coordinate, would they be able to tell that you might be interested in Lolita? I think to a lifestyler, the answer to this question would be yes. It should be recognizable, a part of the ethos or spirit that you carry with you, even when you just are walking down the street. Truthfully, though, that is very, very vague. As well, people just have other interests. The question remains, can you be a Lolita lifestyler if some of your hobbies and interests don't align with the aesthetic of the lifestyle? I mean, I literally saw a Ruffle Chat comment where someone considered that they weren't a lifestyle Lolita, even though they wear the fashion pretty much every day, they said, because they have a car and play video games. Which, like, a lot of people need a car to survive. The fact is that the Lolita lifestyle is not something that's concretely agreed upon by the community. It's not very well defined, and I think that makes it difficult for a lot of us to act on, even if we aspire to be a part of this nebulous great thing. I mean, the ultimate Lolita lifestyler is a fictional character, Momoko from Kamikaze Girls. There is just no real community agreement on what it means to be a lifestyler and how you do it, other than that you should be wearing Lolita far more than the average person at least, and every day at most, and that everything else in your life should be influenced by Lolita fashion. But like I've said before, we just can't seem to agree upon what that means. Again, scroll through Ruffle Chat or Live Journal archives and you will see so much more people discussing why they want to be a lifestyler, what it means to be a lifestyler, what the Lolita lifestyle actually is, than you will see people being a lifestyler and talking about it. I think part of this reason is because achieving the Lolita lifestyle is seen as somewhat elitist or bougie, or at least it was at some point. Because to be able to afford a closet full of Lolita for daily wear and to probably change from a normie or regular aesthetic into a one that is consistent with Lolita fashion requires a certain amount of time and money. You also need to have the luxury of a judgment-free job where you can wear Lolita fashion, or if you are really lucky, no job at all. This isn't even considering the fact that some Lolitas are parents, and if you have children, it can be even harder financially, emotionally, physically to want to wear Lolita all of the time and to center your life around it. After all, Fisher-Price toys are not very kawaii. To be able to wear it 24/7 and indulge in all your feminine hobbies just seems like a privilege very few of us can afford. I mean, listen, how are you ever going to find time to do all of that embroidery and dressing up and tea drinking unless you are actually a French aristocrat? And to me, the tackiest part of all is the discussion on behavior and mannerisms. Ladylike or gentlemanly behavior is often cited as a key part of the Lolita lifestyle. For some, this may mean just social norms like being gracious and polite, which is great, you know? You shouldn't be a menace. But I think others take it a bit far, at least in theoretical comments, right? Disavowing swearing and taking up space in public and keeping one's voice at a cutesy minimum. I find this pretty ironic, considering how much Lolita begs for attention when you're in any public space, and how many people now cite Lolita as having an alleged feminist origin where people started wearing it specifically to take up a lot of space. This mannerisms conversation, I think, is a pretty outdated one. I don't think most Lolitas care about this or believe in this anymore, but it used to be a part of what people would discuss when the Lolita lifestyle came up. I think we can blame some of this on the misinterpretation of Japanese source material that either didn't have translations, or because there were so few translations, things were just taken a lot more literally and seriously. The most egregious example is, of course, the most embarrassing behavior video, which is obviously a joke. And when it's not a joke, most of the things Misako is citing as embarrassing behavior are things that are considered rude in most societies, but in Japanese society, you know, like laughing super loud, running around in public, taking up 3 seats on the bus. This is not Lolita specific and does not mean being super, super cutesy and polite and princessy 24/7. Another example is this old Gothic and Lolita spread called Gothic and Lolita Life, where if you see it without a translation, it really looks visually like it implies that there is a lifestyle attached to the goth and Lolita aesthetic. But when you translate it, it's just a joke. The Lolita does violin practice in the morning and bakes orange souffle in the evening, then puts her hair up in rag curls and goes to sleep. The goth wakes up at like 6 p.m., drinks tomato juice and watches Dracula, then goes to the park at midnight and does tarot readings. But for whatever reason, this idea of ladylike manners and behavior spread in the Lolita fashion community. I think it distanced a lot of people from the idea of being a lifestyler and encouraged a stereotype where being a Lolita lifestyler meant you were maybe a little bit of a snob, or maybe the kind of person who might look down on others who just couldn't attain the same poise and grace that you could. I mean, it's like if you cuss, you're out of the running immediately, so why even bother trying? Most of us just want to be ourselves. Wearing Lolita is a part of that. And of course, I think most of us want to be polite and not be nuisances, but without the extremes of LARPing as a 19th century fair maiden. And speaking of discussion threads and old boards, the online Lolita fashion community in the West has become pretty decentralized in the last few years, reducing people's ability to interact with the fashion in a more intellectual or at least somewhat thought-provoking way. Or I guess in a more interactive, person-to-person way, online. While this doesn't necessarily impact people's ability to become a lifestyler, I think it impacts the desire as a whole for people in the community to do it, especially because less and less people may be finding out about this concept as we're discussing it less. Anecdotally, I remember seeing a lot of conversations about lifestyle Lolita when Facebook groups were active, but of course, now that they're not, no one's talking about that anymore. The online comms shifted from originally basically being on LiveJournal to then being on Tumblr and Facebook to now splintered across Facebook and Reddit and Discord and Tumblr and Twitter and Instagram and who even knows where else. As well as, of course, just in-person comms. Some people may have just shifted completely off of online posting and reserved their Lolita discussions exclusively for in-person with friends or community members. As people in the fashion, again, grow older or just gain more experience, a lot of us have less time and interest in discussing the same points and questions with strangers on the internet. And frankly, a lot of the conversations that come up are ones that have already been had. It's not that there's little to talk about in relation to Lolita fashion, it's just without an archive of these topics, fuck infinite scrolling, it's really hard to maintain new activity. It's normal that the same exciting questions or controversial ones get posted again and again by newbies who have never seen the answers. But how many times are we going to have to answer what's your favorite dress, or what theme do you want to see more often in Lolita, or does AP suck now? And this is a whole other video, but the saltpocalypse of the pandemic really gave a lot of people the ick when it came to online Lolita groups. And I think really drove them off of like the Facebook discussion groups and any centralized area. I mean, Ruffle Chat, Big Sisters of Lolita Fashion, and a lot of the meme pages that existed at the time are almost dead at this point. Because of all of this splintering, what used to be a really common discussion point has now kind of vanished. It feels like something that was accepted as part of the fashion is more of a myth at this point. Does being a lifestyler really exist? Are there even any lifestylers out there at this point? Or have they gone all extinct? The Lolita community is diverse. Of course, there are still lifestylers out there, but I think that the majority of them probably live a much less idealized and a much more boring life than we would all think. So let me talk about this a little bit from my point of view first. I wear Lolita on average about 3 to 5 times a week for most of the year, except for in summer. It's actually the first day of July today, and I'll have worn Lolita 75 times in 6 months. Last year, I wore Lolita 134 times, and the year before that, around 140 to 150. So a bit less than half the year for the last couple. I wear Lolita to work, including the days that I work from home, and to do all sorts of activities. Shopping, visiting museums, eating out, taking a walk, picnics, meetups, etc. I've worn Lolita at home to bake, to clean my oven, to answer the door and pick up a package, to pick up groceries, and even to go to the dentist. Of course, I've decreased the amount that I wear Lolita because I used to film a lot more, and when you film a lookbook with 4 videos like 3 or 4 times a year, that's a lot of coordinates right there. And yet, it's difficult for me to wear Lolita any more than I already do. Like I just said, if anything, it's decreased a bit over the last couple years. For one, it's sometimes just not practical. I already mentioned the summer, but it is 29 degrees today. I don't know what that is in American, sorry. And at this point, with this heat and 90% humidity, the only reason I'm wearing it is because I'm home filming a video. I have no interest in wearing it otherwise as someone who handles heat really, really poorly. I also have a well-managed yet occasionally debilitating chronic illness that is just incompatible with Lolita fashion when it flares up. And while outside of Lolita, my style is still pretty pastel and cutesy and matchy-matchy, I just prefer to wear crusty old t-shirts to sleep instead of frilly PJs with lace all over them. The reality is that what stops me from being a lifestyler is my desire to be comfortable. Like I mentioned before, you can see over and over again that people who wear Lolita almost every day are not calling themselves lifestylers. Just because they don't wear it every single day and it's not the only thing that they think about. I just don't think it's a realistic demand either. After all, none of us are actually French nobles who can just sit around and lounge and drink tea all day. And those people got guillotined for a reason. And when it comes to hobbies or the lifestyle part of Lifestyle Lolita, it's really just hard to define what counts. Is it things that fit the general vibe of Lolita fashion? How do we account for the differences in aesthetic between classic and gothic and sweet? Is it playing classical music? Is it, again, doing embroidery? Is it stereotypically feminine things? And is there room for anything else in the Lolita lifestyle? As someone who likes baking and drawing and writing, but who also prefers horror and action and drama in my movies and media, which of these hobbies are lifestyle enough? Which of these hobbies are Lolita adjacent and which ones are not? And above all, as someone with a stereotypically masculine personality, do I have to shun the confrontational, loud, occasionally aggressive, proud and assertive parts of myself to be a Lolita? Do all of those things deny me entry into the lifestyle? And do I have to stop cussing? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm French Canadian. Puis sacré, là, ça fait partie de ma culture. Puis je pense pas pouvoir abandonner, là. Thankfully, many people before me have come to the same conclusion. We don't have to change any part of ourselves to partake in this lovely fashion or the lifestyle that we may aspire to. The beauty of Lolita fashion, to me, is that it is aspirational. We aspire to feel beautiful, to be outlandish in our femininity, to celebrate opulence and extravagance, to stand out, to be frivolous. As Lolitas, the message that we carry is to be yourself, for the sake of yourself. And Lolita lifestyle to me is the same. It's a goal, it's an aspiration, a dream, whatever you want to call it. Above all, it is a promise of freedom, of living completely for yourself and adapting your whole life to suit your own tastes and the things that you love. We imagine ourselves free from work and responsibilities, able to indulge simply in the things that we love without worrying too much about what other people think. Instead of having to surround ourselves in a sterile, millennial gray environment, why not indulge in the simple beauty of being alive and having the luck to be here at the same time as this beautiful fashion and the privilege that comes with being able to access it in the first place. Personally, I don't think it's meant to be a consistent manifesto. What Lolita means to each person is going to be different, and the same thing applies to the lifestyle. If I had to try and define it as someone whose life has been greatly influenced by the fact that I wear Lolita fashion, it would be like this. The Lolita lifestyle is made up of 3 key points. 1, wearing the fashion as much as you can and having a non-Lolita and non-essential wardrobe that closely matches the aesthetic of Lolita. 2, centering your Lolita style in your life and using it as a major influence on your aesthetic in your home and life and your hobbies. And 3, valuing self-expression, creativity, femininity, and indulgence. While I do recognize that the Lolita lifestyle is hard to achieve, I still find it to be a personal goal of mine. I want to try and be the closest thing I can get to being a lifestyler. I'll be honest and say that a lot of the driving force behind this is financial. I've spent a lot of money on Lolita and I don't like the idea of not wearing it often. Personally, if I wasn't able to wear it to work anymore and I was only wearing it maybe once a week or once a month, I would probably have a significantly smaller collection. I just like feeling like I'm getting use out of what I've spent my money on. And I am very lucky that I get to wear Lolita to work. But it's not always that simple, to be honest. I have a little anecdote. One of the people that I work with, and for context, I am in charge of projects. I don't think I've ever said this before, but I'm a producer in animation for advertisement, for commercials and short form media. But basically one of the people that I work with said that when they met me, they didn't take me seriously at all. They thought because of the way I dressed that it was kind of strange and that I wasn't going to be good at my job because I looked immature. They obviously realized that that wasn't the case and told me as much, because honestly, the fact that that could happen never really even crossed my mind. I'm aware that people judge me because of the way that I look, but I work hard and I'm good at what I do, and I know that. But without Lolita, I wouldn't have been strong enough in the first place to deal with that kind of direct judgment. I don't really mind having to prove myself because I know I can. I'm very aware of how I look, and I don't mind putting the effort in to go past people's expectations. For me, I guess it's part of why I wear the fashion. I know I stand out and I want to live up to that fact too. My life in Lolita very quickly allows me to assert my confidence. And it also distances me from people who would judge me first and foremost on my physical appearance and how I dress. Lolita has really helped shape my adult life and my aesthetic. I love the matchy-matchiness. I love the consistency of the look. I love the guidelines or the rules, whatever you want to call them. And I love that Lolita has taught me to care more for myself and my belongings. My physical appearance and confidence have improved since I started wearing Lolita because I finally cared enough to make the improvements I wanted to see. I've tried a lot of new things like embroidery, like repairing clothes. I've made my own accessories and crafts. I started drawing Lolita fashion, which helped me be able to draw different types of clothing and poses and subjects and new ways to color. I got a doll, one of the most stereotypical Lolita things imaginable. I made plenty of new friends. I hosted panels. I hosted meetups. And yes, I did start drinking tea because I started wearing Lolita fashion. So that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. I've always been really fascinated with the concept of a Lolita lifestyle because it seems to be really something that the community strongly believes in and at the same time cannot agree on at all. It's still really aspirational to me. Like I said already, it's aspirational to me, and maybe that's just because I became interested in Lolita in an era where being a lifestyler was discussed a lot, but I don't really ever let that go because it is just such a nice idea to think that you can love something so much that you center it in so many parts of your life. So what is the Lolita lifestyle to you? I would love to know your definition or your thoughts on it in the comments below. If it's also aspirational for you, if maybe it's the way that you actually live, or if you think it's a bit more of a silly meme that the community came up with in the 2000s. Please let me know as usual. I always love reading your thoughts and appreciate everyone when you take the time to comment and interact with me. It means so much. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will see you in my next one, but until then, bye. And well, I guess I'll go back to sleep after that long and hard day of just talking about Lolita fashion and wearing it. After all, What else is a lifestyle Lolita gonna do?
Asti de crise de tabarnak, asti de calice de vierge.
Asti de crise de tabarnak, asti de calice de vierge.
Asti de calvaire, asti de cibois, calice de tabarnak, asti de crise de tabarnak, asti de calice de vierge.